Okay, welcome to our class this morning. At our last class, we put the recessed dark green lines on the Panther. I've also carried out this practice on the hull, and this is the recessed lines that is our first layering paint. And as I've said in the past, there's probably going to be 7 or 8 layers, maybe 6 or 7 layers of paint, depending on where we are in the vehicle. Down below the vehicle, a little bit more. But layering is what gives it the great depth that the Panther is going to have. And all my models have the same. I'm going to paint this tank. It's a late war Panther. It's going to be a lot of green. But I'm going to start with XF60, which is German dark yellow, mixed with a little bit of gloss white. I always use gloss white as opposed to flat. I've said in the past, tanks are not dead flat. There's a little bit of sheen, and that's just caused by the denim on their trousers and brushing up against plants and what have you. They're definitely not flat. And if you see tanks in real life, even though they're contemporary tanks, Leopards or Abrams, you can definitely tell that they're not dead flat. So I always use gloss white mixed with my German dark yellow to give it that little eggshell finish. So I've already mixed it in the airbrush, and my mixture is going to be 70% thinner to 30% paint. I love that ratio to paint. I don't want to paint my Panther turret all in about 2 passes. I want to gradually build up the colors, and I don't want to get rid of this dark green paint either. And by adding a lot of thinner, and sometimes I go up to 90% thinner, depending on where I am on my vehicle. So, but all those things we'll talk about as we proceed. So I'm going to fire up my compressor and start the... Okay, so I begin just making sure my airbrush has got my flow going and my color is coming out. So I just draw a few little wiggly lines and everything seems fine. My airbrush is clean. And I just mist on color. And as you can see, those green lines are, it appears as if they're not even being covered. But of course, because I love to put on 7 or 8 layers of this color, and as I paint, I'm going to start from the perimeter and I'm going to move inwards to the center. And it's almost a form of modulation. But I'm not even going to paint much more in the center of this model with this particular color. I'm just going to stay to the outside, married the dark green with the light colored yellow of the German army. And I just work from the perimeter inwards. And it may appear that there's not a lot of paint coming out, but there's definitely. So there's a good start. And I'm going to turn the turret around and you can see where we've come from. So there's where we started 5 minutes ago, and here's where we're at now. So it's not going to take so long to do this, but it's going to definitely, you're going to have patience and it's going to take 20 minutes to paint your turret. Maybe even longer. But don't worry, it's hobby time. It's not stressful time. It's not work time. So I'm going to frame it up, go around the perimeter. And with the mixture of paint that I have, you have so much control over what you're putting on your model. I'm never going to accidentally put too much paint on, or too much color rather. It's always going to have the capability of building it up. So as you can see, that's just the first couple of passes, and it's just going to all come together momentarily. Now I'm just working on this perimeter. Alright, so that's the next layer done. There's the top of the turret. Now I'll work down the back. See, and there's an area in the Panther where the crew is going to rub up against. They're going to be carrying things. They're going to be carrying shells and everything. There's going to be a lot of banging and knocking of the paint finish on here. So just to start that process, just to start that weathering, you have to think it out ahead of time. Use your books as a reference point, and find out where these little areas are going to be that the crew accidentally smashes up against with tools around the engine decks, and dropping the jack and scratching the wheels and things like that. So again, use your reference books, use the internet, use the image portion of the Panther internet connections, and then you'll be able to see all these. One of the things also to do is to rent the movie Fury on Blu-ray. And if you stop that in your pause, you can zero right in on certain areas of a Sherman tank. And that'll really help you with the weathering. So there's all kinds of little places you can go to find out how the crew behaves around a combat vehicle. Alright, so we've got another panel done. And if you go too far on a panel, for instance, I like to bring out the center of this door a little lighter. All I'm going to do is just add a little more gloss white to my paint when I'm all finished, and just go back to areas like this, which is coming up on the video. Certainly the high spots of this ventilator, they're all going to be almost and I'm not a big fan of some of the modulation done, but little precise little hits such as the center of the doors and the ventilator, the top of the cupola, all those things are certain areas which I will lighten the color. just go around the perimeter and tie that dark green. And by the way, that color I used is, I'm going to show it to you, XF27 from Tamiya. You can also use XF11. You can also make your own dark green just by using NATO black with your favorite, you know, Tamiya 81 or you know, the RAF green. So you can make the undercolor green just as long as it's dark. And if you're going to use NATO black, make sure that you put green with it. And once again, because I'm using 70% thinner, I can brush over that just like that, and you barely see the paint. Alright, so now I'm going to add a little bit of white to our color, a little bit of gloss white, and start the process over again. Okay, so the procedure is starting for the first coat of paint. And as you can see, it's come together the way that I would hope that it had. I've added about 20% white. The measurement is close to that. It could be 18 or 17% white. I don't know. I didn't measure it exact, but it's about 20% white. And then I'm just gonna, and lots of thinner, tons of thinner. And then I'm gonna go over once more and try to marriage the dark shadow with the green. So that process is going to happen, and then I'm going to take in the third step, I'm going to take about 90% thinner, which I use Tamiya lacquer, and about 10% paint with a very mild color, not white, but getting close to white, and you'll see it all marriage up together. So I'm going to start now, and away we go. So this is our second pass of paint. That's a very mild color. And once again, I'm going to start from the perimeter. Working towards the middle. So I just go around and around, almost like a Zamboni on an ice rink. You just start from the perimeter a little bit. And because I have more white in my airbrush now, I'm painting with more white, I can get closer to the center. I'm not going to hide that primer that I put on initially, but it's going to get closer and closer to becoming invisible. And so is the dark green. So it's, as you can see, it's starting, the whole process is starting. Now I'm going to do the same up here. Again, just working from the outside in. And don't worry about hitting every little nook and cranny either, because the whole process is going to take lots of paint, lots of thinner, and then we're going to put oil washes on it, and that's going to catch all those little spots that you think you've missed. Don't worry about zeroing in on areas so much. This is a very early stage of painting the tank. So okay, so working from the perimeter in, go around and around. And as you can see, that beginning of that green recessed line color is just fading into nothing. You know, it's getting very close to being gone. You know, you can still easily see it, and then once we start putting the oil paints on it and what have you, it'll almost appear to be invisible. Right now though, we're very close to adding on our new color now. So I'll do that, and I'll be right with you. Okay, so now I've mixed the paint. I have 90% thinner, lacquer thinner, and I have 10% paint. About 5% white, 5% yellow. And I'm just going to hit the high spots on the model. Then on our next step 4, then we're going to start the beautiful weathering process, all using pigments and oil washes and what have you. So, and then I can always go back over top of the oil paint and over top of any pigments, mix up a mixture again of Tamiya paints, and paint again. If there's an area on this turret that just is not pleasing to the eye, I'm just going to be able to go back. I'll be going back over top of the oils and what have you with the same mixture of paint. So not to panic, if I blow it, I'm not worried about it. I can easily go back, mix up the same tin of paint, and then go through the process. So I'm going to add the little bit of, I'm going to start to paint it in a second. So here we go. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a thin line here beside the darker line, and you're going to see how faint it is. I don't even know if you can see it on the table. But you can see how faint the line is. So there's no way that this line is going to, come on too heavy and wash away what I've already done. It's too thin a line. And like I say, there's about 90% thinner here. So, and I'm just going to catch the high points of the Panther and then shut down the airbrush for a couple of days while I MIG it up and put all the oil washes on it. So here we go. And these lines, like I say, are very, very faint. So as you can see now, it's really coming together. Just getting rid of, I'd like to say that this is what they call harmonizing. Harmonizing all the 3 colors together. The first shade of dark green, and then all the different shades of this German green color, German yellow color. And as you can see, with the 90% thinner, coverage is very mild. And I've angled the airbrush just to hit the high points on the top of the tank. Because there's a lot of white in my paint, you can see that eggshell color coming through. And there we are. So I'll just rotate it around so we can all see it. And you can see how it's certainly coming together. And then once the next layer, which is the oil washes, it'll just pull it all together and it'll all look as one. So there we are. I'll see you shortly.